Hey friends, my name is Andrew. I'm the student pastor here at Dulles, and I am so glad that you have joined us here today. I'm super excited. We're continuing in our series, our Christmas series, God Come Close. So in the spirit of this season, what is your favorite Christmas movie? Give you a second to think about it. My favorite Christmas movie, or one of them at least, has been always It's a Wonderful Life. I love the fact that it's in black and white. It's a movie about this guy, George Bailey, who goes through a series of things in his life that kind of just put him down a path to a little bit of success, and then his life just kind of crumbles. He realizes that things aren't the way that he wants them to be. He starts realizing kind of how inwardly and selfish he is. It's kind of like a modern day Christmas Carol with Scrooge. His family and the relationship there's tension, just his attitude towards everything. But still, in the end, he meets an angel that comes to him and shows him what life would be like for other people without George Bailey in their lives. And he realizes, how much of a difference and how much of an impact he makes on people's lives. It's a very feel-good movie. At the end of it, everybody's singing together, everybody's in their house, everybody's hugging, and that's like the kind of picture perfect thing you think of when you hear a Christmas movie. It makes you feel good inside. You get that warm, fuzzy feeling. There's the display of the humorous yet also tense family dynamics that go on. And then the main character, or whoever it is, they learn an important lesson about family, about life, about relationships, about love, about gratefulness, about generosity. That's what makes a Christmas movie, right? All those things. There is a group of people who, when the question is asked, what's your favorite Christmas movie? They answer Die Hard. And I, for the longest time, would completely argue against that. If you've never seen Die Hard, it's an action film. The only reason why it's relatively close to a Christmas movie is because it takes place on December 24th, Christmas Eve. The plot of the story is that Bruce Willis's character is going to a Christmas party, and the Christmas party is on the top floor of a skyscraper. Terrorists come and kidnap everybody on the top floor, and then the whole movie is about him slowly getting rid of the terrorists to be able to reach his family who's at the top to rescue and save them. It's action-packed. It's violent. It's kind of sit on the edge of your seat. It's dangerous. It is not what you would think of when you hear Christmas movie. It doesn't have those typical elements of a Christmas movie. We are continuing in the book of Matthew. We're going to be reading Matthew chapter 2 today. And as I was reading this, I came to the conclusion that, you know what? I think those people who say that Die Hard is a Christmas movie or their favorite Christmas movie, they may be onto something. There's now a big part of me after reading Matthew chapter 2 that thinks that Die Hard is actually a very real and raw and relevant picture of the Christmas story. So just to recap, okay? We've gone through Matthew chapter 1 in two different parts. The first week, Pastor Brad talked about the genealogy of Jesus and how there were specific names that were labeled in the genealogy. Names like Tamar and Rahab and David and Bathsheba. People in the Bible, if you read their stories, they have a darkness. They have a dark stain in their past. They've messed up. They're broken. They've made mistakes. And Pastor Brad pointed out how despite that darkness in the lineage of Jesus, despite the fact that Jesus's great-great-grandparents and fathers were broken and messed up, despite that, through that line still comes light. Out of the darkness comes light. And then last week, we wrapped up chapter 1 with the dialogue between the angel and Joseph, who was Jesus' dad. And the angel tells Joseph about who Jesus is, who he's going to be, what he's going to do for him, what he's going to do for all of humanity, what he's going to be called. We focus on the word Emmanuel. And that's not just another title. It's not just another name for Jesus. It's a promise. It's an action step from God. God with us. That's what Emmanuel means. And we looked at how that is such a center point, a pinnacle point of the Christmas story. So then we get into chapter 2. And right there in chapter 2, verse 1, we are introduced to a guy named Herod. It says this: Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. Okay, so King Herod, let's give some background on him. King Herod was, his dad was a government official. His mom was Jewish. He was not necessarily born into royalty. He didn't have any royal blood. There was nothing in his family line that would have allowed him to move into this position of kingship. He is actually what is called a client king, which basically means that the reigning power put him into that seat, made him a king, essentially. He was a client king of Rome. The Roman Empire was what ruled over Judea at that time, and they said, Herod, you can be king over there. And so a client king, if we were to talk about it in today's day and age, he basically was a suck up to Rome. He knew the right people. He shook the right hands. He stayed away from the right people. Herod was meticulous in navigating the political waters of his day to be able to end up at a certain place, to be able to move into the position that he wanted to. And he moved up in the ranks, slowly through government, slowly through the Roman Empire in different places. But he would flip-flop. He would do whatever it took for him to be able to be in the place that he wanted to be. His allegiances were contingent upon what that person could offer them. If he thought that one side was going to lose favor, he would flip-flop to the other side. He really didn't have any kind of moral compass. He just really cared about himself. He was obsessed with control. He was a master, actually, at control. He was a master at controlling his circumstances and his future. And if anything ever threatened that control, he would just simply get rid of it. He'd just simply get rid of it. For one instance, his own family, after becoming king of Judea, he suspected that his wife might be trying to overthrow him, trying to seize that control and that power. So he killed her. And then he suspected 2 of his sons of the same thing. He thought 2 of his sons were trying to grab his control, to take his power away from him. So he killed them. And then he killed a brother-in-law. He killed his grandfather-in-law. He killed his mother-in-law. That was just how Herod dealt with the threat that someone might be taking away his control. And so, in a very Herod-like fashion, miles away from him, in a food trough, in a stable in a rural back town country, little town called Bethlehem, a little baby was born. That little baby invoked the same feeling of threat and fear in Herod. Look at what it says continuing on in chapter 2. About that same time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this. That word, deeply disturbed, is extremely important. It's the same word that's used to describe the feelings of the disciples when Jesus was walking on water and they thought they were seeing a ghost walking towards them on the water. They were petrified. They were terrified. They were frightened. After Jesus comes back from the dead, spoiler alert, and appears to his disciples, standing in front of them, this is the word that he uses to describe what the disciples are feeling. They watched their best friend get murdered 3 days earlier, and now he's standing in front of them. And the word that Jesus uses to describe what they are feeling is this same word, disturbed. They're terrified. It's a deep, deep-seated fear. That's what that word is. And in the case of Herod, his fear is rooted in the threat against his control. It's rooted in losing control. And so Herod, to deal with Jesus, because he believes that Jesus, this little baby that was born in a manger, is going to compromise his control, is going to take his control, his power away from him. He says to the wise men who came and told him about Jesus. He said, hey, when you find out where he is specifically in Bethlehem, come back and tell me so I can worship him. And he was not planning to worship him, obviously. He was going to send somebody, or him himself, he was going to go and take Jesus out. He was going to eliminate the threat of that, of someone taking his power. So when the wise men get there, they get to the manger, they see Jesus, they're all happy, they give him gifts, and then on their way back, an angel tells them, hey, don't go back to Herod, just go straight home. And the angel tells Joseph, hey, you need to get out of Bethlehem, go to Egypt. And both of them obey. When Herod finds out that the wise men, the Bible says that Herod was infuriated when he found out that the wise men outwitted him. That's another just signal of like being power and control hungry. When someone outwits you, he became furious. And so he sent soldiers to Bethlehem. And he said, you know what? Go to Bethlehem, find any boy under the age of 2, and kill them. That was his solution. He couldn't get the location, so let's just wipe out everybody that's in there. Even to the end of chapter 2, chapter 2 ends with the angel telling Joseph and Mary, who are in Egypt, saying, hey, you can go back home now. The one who was chasing after you has died. And so it's still years that Herod is just obsessed with taking out the one thing that he thinks is a threat to his control, to his power. This is the dangerous, the violent side of the Christmas story. And now, in messages and in sermons, you'll hear the pastor read a Bible story or story from Scripture, and then they'll make the connection between the characters or the situation in the Bible to us today. So you're probably thinking, Andrew, I'm nothing like Herod. That guy's a maniac. He's a sociopath. He seems like he's got some anger issues, and he doesn't seem like he has a moral compass. He seems obsessive. I'm nothing like Herod. And I would agree. While extreme, this example of Herod, I don't think that there's just no way that it's just a coincidence that Jesus was born into the reigning kingdom of Herod. It's intentional that a little baby would be born, the light of the world, the hope of the world, would be born into the country of a madman, of someone who represents an ancient brokenness in humanity, the brokenness of wanting to be in control. And I say the word ancient because we see it all the way back in the Old Testament. The very first thing in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve didn't eat the fruit for fun. They didn't eat it because they were curious. They ate it because they wanted to be in control. They picked their way. The action that broke this entire world, that broke us, was rooted in the desire to be in control of our lives, to have it my way. In every heart, in every single heart, there's a little King Herod that wants to be in control of their life. And it feels threatened by anything that might take that away. And you may ask, well, what's wrong with that, Andrew? What's wrong with wanting to be in control? The belief that you should be in control of your life is ultimately a form of slavery. Stick with me. I know those are pretty intense words. The belief that you should be in control of your life is ultimately a form of slavery. Think back in your life. When did you decide that you would like to be in control of things in your life? When did you decide that you wanted to have it your way? When did you decide that I want things my way? Our son, Theo, is 1.5 months old. He's not even, I don't think he's even 50 days old yet. He's like 40 something days old. And already I see this little baby wanting to take control, wanting his way. I'm feeding him with a bottle. He's laying on his right side. If he doesn't want to lay on his right side, he's going to whine and scream until we lay him on his right side, because that's the way that he wants it. And he's a little baby. He doesn't even know that this is necessarily what he's doing. It's instinctive in him to want to have things his way. And for those of you who've had kids as a toddler, in the toddler stage, doesn't it just get more intense? And then in the teenage years, words like no and I don't want to, do you think those are rooted in like a moral compass? Like when you tell your kid, hey, it's time to go to bed, they say, I don't want to. It's not because they think that there's a moral dilemma with going to bed. They just don't want to go to bed. They want to be in control of their life. And as we get older, that element of our life, the desire to be in control, gets more and more nuanced. It becomes more and more gray. When you want to be in control of getting into a specific university or a specific school, when you want to be in control of your finances, when you want to be in control of who you're in a relationship with, we start to not see those things as bad things. In fact, we even begin to accept and normalize and even glorify our obsession with wanting to be in control of our lives. The number of hours that a student athlete puts in to their craft, to their sport, in hopes that they get noticed by a scout, in hopes that they can get a scholarship, in hopes that they can get signed. The amount of hours that someone puts into their job at work because they want that promotion. They want that raise. All these things we would never think of, hey, that's a bad thing. And it's not. Having goals in life is not a bad thing. Having aspirations and being meticulous about trying to do the best thing for our future or to get to a certain place, there's nothing wrong with that. So it's not that control is necessarily a bad thing. The dangerous thing is the bondage of wanting to be in control. The instinct when we don't think about it, when it just comes naturally, that bondage is what's dangerous, because the reality is that at the core of every human heart, there is a slave driver that is saying your way is the best way, continually telling you over and over again, your way is the best way, your way is the best way. But if we look back at history, if we even look back on our lives, we see that our way is what destroys relationships. Our way is what breeds intolerance and hatred for those who think differently than us, who believe differently than us, or who just are different than us in general. Our way is what continues the cycle of political and cultural divide. Our way is what makes us progressively more focused on ourselves and less on the people around us. When Jesus comes, when the story of Christmas starts, it's a declaration of war against that bondage. Jesus said it himself later in his life that he came to proclaim the release of those who were captive, to set free those who were oppressed. So many people in the day of Jesus thought he's going to take us out of the tyranny of the Roman Empire. He's going to free us from this political oppression. But it's so clear in his life and his message that he wasn't talking about politics. He wasn't talking about culture. He was talking about freeing us from the brokenness that's inside every single one of us, the brokenness that enslaves us to ourselves. When a liberator frees, when a liberator comes to take out those who are oppressed, to free them from slavery, to take them out of captivity, they don't force them into freedom. They simply rescue and they offer their hand. They offer their protection. They offer an alternative life, an alternative way of life. And I can tell you from experience that every single decision and every single choice that I've made that ended up in destruction, that ended up in pain or hurt or ruin or emptiness or loneliness or not being fulfilled, it was rooted in my desire to be in control of my life. It was rooted in my desire to have things my way. When I said what I said to Jesse during the argument, It's because I wanted to say it. I felt like I deserve or I need to get this out. When I made that decision that disappointed my parents and worried them, it's because I wanted to live my life in the way that I wanted to. And Christmas is the story of Jesus getting up close and personal. For me, it's the story of him getting up close and personal with my brokenness, fighting to free me from my bondage of continually choosing myself and offering me something different than the cyclical mess that I continue to make when I am self-centered, when I choose my way, when my posture is of control and I know what's best. Living in that Christmas freedom, taking the offering of liberty and freedom that Jesus offers, it doesn't mean that my life just goes easy. Surrendering my life and control to Jesus isn't always comfortable. It's not always painless. Sometimes it doesn't even make any sense. But it's always been good. And that's what Jesus is offering. That's what part of the Christmas story is about. Is the freedom from the cycle of us continuing to choose ourselves, continuing to look inward and then destroying and then looking inward again and then destroying, that cycle that continuously sets humanity into wars and division. That's the freedom that Christmas offers. That's what Christmas wages war on. And as someone who maybe has a little bit bigger of a King Herod in my heart, and who has maybe held on a little bit tighter than most people to control, and who's maybe picked my way more times than the average person, this is my prayer for myself. This is what I pray. And if this resonates with you and you want that freedom, you want to step into that, you can say this along with me. Jesus, I'm tired of what happens when I'm in control. Time gets wasted, opportunities are missed, relationships are broken, people get hurt. I've made such a terrible habit of always being in control, of always wanting my way. Jesus, break my selfish instinct. Replace my closed fists with open hands. Shatter the mirror that causes me to continually and selfishly look inward, and open my eyes and my heart to others, to those around me. Thank you for fighting for me. Thank you for freeing me. I surrender my control and my life to you. Amen. Dulles family, there is freedom in the Christmas story, and it's available for us to step into. I love you guys so much. We are wrapping up our Christmas series next week with our Christmas Eve service. It's going to be on December 24th. That's a Saturday. Join us online. There will be no gathering on Sunday. So be with us there. We're excited to see you. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. See you guys next time.